Are you tired of letting your emotions sabotage your progress? One moment you're motivated, the next you're overwhelmed, angry, or discouraged. This constant emotional roller coaster keeps you stuck, reactive, and far from your potential. In this talk, we're going to uncover how to break that pattern, how to train your mind to lead, not follow. You'll learn to stop living at the mercy of your feelings and start creating a life built on peace, purpose, and power. There comes a point in life when you look around and realizing you're not living your truth, you're living your reactions. You're not guided by your highest vision, but by the moods and emotions that sweep through like unpredictable weather. But you are not your emotions. You are not your anger, your fear, your sadness, or even your joy. Those are visitors, not who you are. You are the observer behind it all. And when you begin to understand this, not just as a concept, but as a deep inner knowing, your life begins to change. Because a person who can remain still when the world pulls, who can choose love over rage, clarity over confusion, peace over panic, that person holds real power. Today we begin that transformation. Let's explore how to train the mind not to suppress your feelings, but to lead them with calm, clarity, and intention. There is a subtle war going on within you, a war that most people never notice, yet it influences every choice, every response, every relationship, every dream. It is the war between emotion and intentions. You wake up in the morning with a vision. You say to yourself, today I will be calm, today I will be disciplined, today I will stay focused. But then life happens. Someone cuts you off in traffic. An email triggers frustration. A memory from yesterday brings anxiety. Suddenly, your intention, your quiet, sacred vow, is buried beneath a wave of reactive emotions. This is the silent sabotage that holds millions back. People with beautiful goals, with pure intentions, with high aspirations, find themselves emotionally hijacked by moments that should have been observed, not absorbed. Emotions are not the enemy. They are the smoke, not the fire. The real fire is your unconscious attachment to believing every feeling that arises must be acted upon. What begins as a flicker of doubt becomes a full wildfire of overthinking. What starts as a moment of sadness becomes a script of failure. You can train the mind to stop feeding these flames. Emotions are not bad. In fact, they are sacred. They are indicators, not dictators. They tell you something about your internal state, but they do not define your path unless you give them that authority. The mind, on the other hand, when trained, becomes the gatekeeper of your destiny. It is the observer that can pause between the feeling and the reaction, and in that pause is where your power lies. Many people assume their feelings are who they are. They say, I am angry, instead of, I feel anger. That subtle shift changes everything, because once you start seeing feelings as temporary weather systems moving through the sky of your consciousness, you stop building your identity around them. A storm may come, but you don't say, I am the storm. You wait, observe, stay still, and the sky clears again. The same is true for sadness, envy, anxiety, frustration. They all pass through. They are meant to, they always have. It is your attachment to them that causes suffering. When intention leads, emotion becomes a tool instead of a trap. You can use emotion to fuel action, but not define it. You can feel anger without speaking in anger. You can feel doubt without abandoning your paths. The key is where your attention goes the moment emotion arises. Is it to defend the feeling or to stay aligned with your intention? What you practice grows stronger. If you practice reacting, your reactions will control you. If you practice observing and choosing with intention, your mind becomes stronger than your feelings. This is not about becoming cold or detached. It's about becoming deeply connected to what is real and eternal in you. Emotions are waves on the surface. Your mind, when trained, is the still ocean beneath it all. It is a sacred practice to choose intention over reaction. The moment you decide to pause, to breathe, to reflect, to ask yourself, what would my highest self do in this moment? That moment becomes your training ground. That moment becomes your transformation. One moment becomes one day. One day becomes a habit. A habit becomes a new identity. You are not here to live at the mercy of your emotional state. You are here to become conscious of it, to honor it, and to choose your response. The stronger your mind, the more space you create between stimulus and response. And in that space is wisdom. In that space is maturity. In that space is your freedom. A trained mind knows the difference between truth and a passing thought. It knows that a bad mood is not a bad life. It knows that tears are not weakness, but releasing what no longer serves. It knows that discomfort is not a warning sign to stop, but an invitation to go deeper. This journey begins when you stop reacting to the noise and start listening to the whisper of your inner being, the whisper of calm strength. That whisper says, you are not your mood, you are not your past, you are not your fears. You are the presence behind it all. The battle between emotion and intention ends the day you realize you no longer need to fight your feelings. You only need to lead them with love, patience, and awareness. There is a sacred intelligence in you that often goes unnoticed. It exists beyond your thoughts, beyond your emotions, and beyond your words. It is the awareness that sees without judgment, hears without reacting, and waits without fear. Most people never meet this part of themselves. They live on the surface in constant motion, caught in the noise of their feelings, racing from one emotion to another, pulled by their environment, consumed by thoughts that repeat like broken records. But there's another way to live. A quieter, wiser way that begins the moment you realizing you are not your mind. You are the awareness behind it. When you begin to awaken to this truth, everything changes. You stop getting swept away by the waves of your emotions, and you start watching them instead. Imagine the difference between being inside a storm and watching that storm through a window. When you're in it, you can't see clearly. But when you're watching, there's a quiet space between you and the chaos. That space is your power. That space is stillness. Stillness is not the absence of thought or emotion. It is the presence of something deeper. It is the calm beneath the chaos, the silence beneath the sounds, the awareness that exists even when the mind is noisy. This awareness is not something you earn. It's something you return to. It was always there, patiently waiting for you to remember it. The human mind is like a river, constantly moving, constantly flowing. Emotions are like leaves carried by that current. They drift in and out, rise and fall. But the awareness beneath that river, the stillness that watches the flow, never changes. That stillness is your true self, not your reactive self, not your emotional self, your real, unshakable self. When you train the mind to recognize this stillness, you are no longer at the mercy of every emotional impulse. You begin to understand that not every feeling requires a response. Not every thought deserves your energy. Some thoughts are just echoes from an old version of you. Some emotions are leftovers from yesterday's story. When you sit in stillness, those stories begin to lose their grip on you. You stop believing that every inner voice is telling the truth. The world will constantly offer you reasons to react. A sharp word, a disappointing result, an unexpected event. But you are not obligated to lose your peace every time something outside of you moves. Awareness teaches you that peace is not something you chase. It's something you uncover when you stop chasing. It's what's left when you stop identifying with every passing feeling. There is no strength greater than the strength of presence. Presence is what allows you to witness fear without becoming it. It allows you to feel sadness without drowning in it. It allows you to face chaos without losing yourself to it. That is the gift of awareness. It doesn't remove emotion. It removes the illusion that emotion is all there is. Most people try to escape uncomfortable feelings. They distract themselves, numb themselves, or deny what they feel. But avoidance only makes emotions stronger. Suppression is not strength. Strength is sitting with your feeling and letting it pass without needing to change it or run from it. That is the power of inner stillness. It turns you into a safe space for your own humanity. Stillness is not passivity. It is not weakness. It is the highest form of wisdom. In stillness, you respond instead of react. In stillness, you see clearly what your next step is, instead of being driven by habit. In stillness, you meet yourself fully, not the version of you that's trying to prove something, but the one that's already whole. Awareness isn't something you need to go searching for. It's already here. In fact, you've experienced it many times. The moment after a deep breath, the pause before you speak, the silence between two thoughts, the clarity after you've cried, the space you feel when you're in nature. Those are not just moments of relief. They are glimpses of your true natures. They are reminders that behind every storm is a sky that has never been touched. You train your mind to return to this stillness not by force, but by practice. The more you sit with yourselves, the more you notice what arises and passes, the more you realize that you were never those feelings to begin with. You were the one who saw them, and the one who can see is never bound by what is seen. This practice does not require perfection. It only requires willingness. The willingness to pause, to breathe, to observe without rushing to fix. The willingness to let your feelings pass through you like wind through open space. The willingness to meet your inner world not as an enemy, but as something sacred to be witnessed. When you do that, stillness is no longer something you visit. It becomes where you live. When most people hear the word discipline of effort, they think of rigidity, force, pressure, a system of control to overpower chaos. But this is a narrow view of something deeply sacred. Discipline, when understood through the lens of inner growth, is not about restriction. It is about alignment. It is about becoming so devoted to your inner peace, your purpose, and your potential that you are no longer willing to be dragged around by the old habits that no longer serve you. Discipline is not punishment. It is self-respect in motion. It is the act of choosing who you want to be over and over, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's inconvenient, even when your emotions tempt you to abandon that choice. People believe they need motivation to act, but that's the illusion. Motivation comes and goes like the wind. But discipline, the spiritual discipline, is steady. It's the quiet decision you make before the feeling arrives. It's what keeps you anchored when your mind spins and your emotions rise. It's what reminds you, I have the power to choose again. You do not need to feel strong to act strong. You do not need to feel confident to show up with courage. What you need is to train your mind to honor the decision, even when your emotions resist it. Discipline becomes spiritual the moment you stop doing it for results and start doing it because it reflects who you are becoming. It becomes a form of devotion. Devotion to your higher selves, to your vision, to your truth. Each time you choose peace over reaction, each time you choose stillness over drama, each time you choose reflection over impulses, you are practicing a sacred discipline that shapes your character in silence. This kind of practice does not show up on social media. It doesn't ask for applause. It happens in those invisible moments where no one is watching, when your mind whispers, "Just quit," and your heart calmly replies, "Not today." The undisciplined mind wants comfort. It wants escape. It wants quick relief. But the trained mind seeks alignment. It looks beyond the feeling of the moment and asks a deeper question: does this serve the life I'm building? Does this action honor the version of me I'm becoming? That's the difference. The reactive mind chases immediate emotion. The disciplined mind holds vision. It is not about suppressing your feelings. It's about not letting your feelings steer the ship. Your emotions are passengers. They come and go. Your vision is the captain. It must lead. When you approach discipline this way, it stops being something heavy. It becomes an expression of love. You no longer eat well to punish your body. You do it to love it. You no longer wake early just to grind. You do it to honor your time on this earth. You no longer sit in silence just to seem spiritual. You do it because peace has become your home. Discipline starts to look less like effort and more like reverence. Reverence for your time. Reverence for your gifts. Reverence for the sacred space within you that knows the difference between a craving and a calling. It is easy to be disciplined when everything feels right. It is easy to follow your path when the weather is good. But real spiritual discipline is tested in the storm, when nothing is going your way, when the doubt is loud, when the emotions are overwhelming, when your mind is screaming for escape, and you calmly choose to stay, to breathe, to show up anyway. That's when your soul grows. That's when the real shift happens. Because in that moment, in those 8 hours, you are not being led by fear. You are being led by something deeper, your inner knowing. This path is not about perfection. You will fall. You will forget. You will have days when emotions get the best of you. That's part of it. The practice is not about never falling. It's about returning again and again. Returning to your breaths. Returning to your purpose. Returning to the quiet knowing that you were made for more than survival. You were made to live in harmony with your higher self. Every time you return, your discipline grows. Not because of the result, but because of the reverence you build for the process itself. There is no finish line in this work. There is no point where discipline becomes unnecessary. But the more you walk this path, the more it becomes who you are. Not something you do, but something you embody. You begin to trust yourself. Not because life is predictable, but because you are. You begin to experience peace. Not because the world is calm, but because you are. And you begin to understand that discipline is not the opposite of freedom. It is the path to it. Transformation does not come through force. It does not arrive through a moment of sudden motivation or a burst of inspiration that fades as quickly as it came. Real change, the kind that rewires your patterns, your thoughts, your entire emotional structure, comes quietly, gradually, and only through consistency. The mind, like the body, is shaped by what it is exposed to over and over. And just like a muscle strengthens through repetition, your mental strength is built through repeated presence. Not occasional awareness, not fleeting intention, but sustained, conscious attention to the thoughts you choose, the emotions you observe, and the energy you carry. We are often taught that we must wait for a better mood to act. But the truth is, you must act with presence regardless of your mood. Emotions are not obstacles. They are invitations to stay conscious. Every time you feel overwhelmed, distracted, agitated, or uncertain, you are being offered an opportunity to choose again, to practice, to observe without judgment, to return to the now. And in that return, You strengthen the bridge between your reactive self and your conscious self. It's easy to believe that one day, with enough willpower or the right book or a powerful experience, everything will just click. But the mind doesn't rewire through moments. It rewires through momentum. One moment becomes 2. One conscious breath becomes 5. One day of staying aware becomes a week. That repetition, when infused with presence, creates a new rhythm inside you, and that rhythm begins to replace the chains that once ruled you. Presence is the silent sculptor of the mind. When you remain present, you notice how often your old wiring tries to take over. You see how quickly your thoughts pull you into stories that no longer serve you. You witness how feelings arise, not to defeat you, but to show you where you still hold unconscious beliefs. In that witnessing, you stop reacting from habit. You begin to pause. And in that pause, you make a new choice. That is where the rewiring begins. Not in fighting the old pattern, but in no longer energizing it with belief. Most of the mind's noise is rooted in repetition. The same fears, the same doubts, the same narratives playing like background music in your head. But what if you could change the track? What if, instead of feeding fear, you fed trust? What if, instead of repeating a story of not enough, you spoke silently the truth that you are already whole? You don't have to believe these new thoughts completely at first. You just need to plant them, water them, return to them daily, because the mind does not grow from intensity, it grows from consistency. The beauty of presence is that it doesn't require ideal conditions. You don't need silence. You don't need perfect health or a clean environment. You just need willingness to be here, willingness to stop running from your inner experience, willingness to listen without reacting, to feel without escaping. Presence is not about controlling your experience. It's about experiencing it fully without becoming lost in it. You train your mind not by forcing it to be quiet, but by gently returning it each time it wanders. Like returning to your breath, like returning to your body, like returning to the now. The repetition of returning is where the transformation occurs, not in perfect stillness, but in the imperfect practice of awareness. Every return weakens the grip of the old mind and strengthens the presence of the new. Habits are not broken through guilt. They are replaced through grace. When you fall into old reactions, meet yourself with compassion. See the pattern, but don't identify with it. Use the moment not as evidence of failure, but as fuel for your practice. The repetition of patience, of choosing presence over self-judgment, that is how the inner rewiring becomes permanent. The more you respond with awareness, the more natural it becomes. Soon, what once required conscious effort becomes your default state. Presence does not require you to eliminate thought. It invites you to see thought for what it is. Temporary, shifting, often untrue. The more you watch your thoughts come and go without being pulled into their storylines, the more spacious your mind becomes. That space is not emptiness. It is clarity. It is power. It is where intuition lives, where peace rests, where strength grows silently. You don't have to change everything overnight. You don't have to win every inner battle in one day. You just need to return again and again with presence, with gentleness, with faith that this moment, in those 8 hours right now, is enough to begin again. That is the power of conscious repetition. That is how you rewire your inner world, not by controlling what arises, but by mastering how you relate to it, moment by moment. You came into this world not to be ruled by your emotions, but to rise above them with grace. You are not here to react endlessly to the tides of life, but to become the stillness beneath the waves. That stillness has always been there, untouched, unmoved, waiting for you to return. When you begin to see the battle between emotion and intention, you reclaim your authority. You stop giving away your power to temporary moods. You start living from a place of choice, not from conditioned reaction. And the more aware you become, the more clearly you see that you were never meant to be controlled by what comes and goes. You are here to live from what is eternal within you. This journey is not one of suppression, but of observation. You are not meant to silence your emotions. You are meant to guide them, to be the calm presence that they answer to. That begins with awareness. That deep, unwavering presence that allows the storms to come and go without mistaking them for the sky. Discipline becomes the bridge between who you've been and who you are becoming. It is no longer about control. It is about commitment, a commitment to peace, a commitment to your highest self, a commitment to walking with presence even when the path feels unclear. Each time you choose discipline over distraction, you are declaring that your vision is more important than your impulses. And then there's the repetition. the sacred rhythm of returning to presence again and again, rewiring your mind through gentle awareness, not aggression, training yourself to respond from the soul rather than the ego. This isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming conscious, because every conscious choice rewrites your future. This is your work. This is your practice. To train your mind to be stronger than your feelings, not by resisting your humanity, but by anchoring yourself in your divinity. To walk through life as a calm force, not because the world is peaceful, but because you are. The storms will come. But the one who has trained their mind to lead, the one who listens to the stillness within, will never be lost in the storm. They will walk through it, clear, grounded, and free.